92.7 3 FM. 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 3 FM.
Hello, good evening and welcome to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, coming to you live from our studio here at Adesawe Kanda in Accra. I am Martin Asiedu Date. Coming up this evening, the United States government reportedly bars Ghana from accessing foreign assistance, including development loans, due to the country's failure to meet key debt obligations owed to American entities. The restrictions are expected to take effect in the 2026 financial year. Stay tuned for details. Also coming up, the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, the PURC, justifies the over 25% cumulative tariff adjustment for water and electricity. We'll hear concerns of ordinary Ghanaians about this increment. And later, the Ghana Medical Association rejects claims that doctors are avoiding rural postings, as 305 out of the 463 fail to report to their new posts. Details of all of these and more coming up within the next 1 hour, including business and sports. Before that, though, Nurah Mohammed would give us the news summaries. Hello, Nurah.
Hello, Martin. Good evening. First in the summaries, Minister of Communications, Digital Technology and Innovations, Samuel Nate George, has said government will commence a new SIM registration exercise by first quarter of 2026. The minister, in an interview on TV3 on Wednesday, December 3rd, argued that the previous SIM registration exercise conducted by the former minister and erstwhile NPP government was not valid. Also, the Minister of Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation, Samuel Nate George, has disclosed that a document on the restructuring between AT Ghana and Telecel Ghana has been presented to Cabinet for review and approval. Speaking in an interview on TV3 December 3rd, 2025, Sam George said he expects Cabinet to review the deal by the end of 2025 for an onward decision to be taken. Meanwhile, the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly (KMA) has embarked on an exercise to crack down on unauthorized trading in the Central Business District, aiming to ease congestion ahead of Christmas. This exercise, led by the technical advisor to the Kumasi Mayor Francis Dodovi, targeted the Bantama Central Market, Kejetia Market entrance, and surrounding areas. KMA task forces and military personnel drove hawkers off pavements, seizing goods and towing vehicles parked in unauthorized areas. Wooden structures on pavements were also demolished, and traders whose items were seized were made to sweep and clean the pavements. Now, the Technical University Senior Administrators Association of Ghana, TUSAG, has embarked on a nationwide strike effective today, Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025. The strike, the association says, is as a result of the government's failure to honor a negotiated one-time research allowance that has been outstanding for almost 17 months. And that will be all for the summaries. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Nurah. Let's settle down for the details of the stories now. And clearly, the United States has been busy. President Donald Trump has, on a number of occasions, taken decisions that Ghana has been affected. There is a new one which has to do with finances. So the United States government has barred Ghana from accessing foreign assistance, including development loans and flagship support programs such as the Millennium Challenge Cooperation, the MCC, following the country's failure to meet key debt obligations owed to American entities. The restrictions are expected to take effect on from the 2026 financial year. According to an economic intelligence report, the decision is based on the debt default restructuring or restriction under Section 7012 of the FY 2025 State Foreign Operations and Relegated Program Appropriations Act. The provision prohibits U.S. foreign aid to any country that has defaulted on sovereign debt owed to or guaranteed by a U.S. person or certain official creditors unless a restructuring agreement has been completed. Two major default events appear to have triggered the application of Section 7012 to Ghana. The first relates to Ghana's announcement on December 19, 2022, that it was spending payments. The first relates to Ghana's announcement on December 19, 2022, that it was suspending payments on most of its external public debt, including Eurobonds, commercial term loans, and the majority of its bilateral obligations. These instruments are widely held by international investors, including U.S. banks, asset managers, and investment funds. The second default involves an estimated $251 million in outstanding payments owed to several U.S. companies, including Twin City Energy, American Tower Company, GSM, Chubb, Cosmos Energy, and Zipline. Some of these obligations, such as those involving Twin City Energy and Chubb, are backed by the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, raising concerns in Washington over potential losses to U.S. taxpayers. In a moment, we'll go to the phone lines and speak to a development economist who has been following this issue for us. He's joined us for a quick chat. Nicholas Isaka Bana is a development economist. Good evening, sir. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be part of your program.
Many would recall that in 2022, December precisely, Ghana suspended payment of its external debts. How key was that suspension to this decision by the U.S. government to restrict foreign assistance or foreign aid to Ghana?
Okay, so let me provide some broader context. This specific restriction is related to the Millennium Challenge Corporation. We declared debt default in December 2022. Throughout 2023, 2024, up to even 2025, USAID was still running programs in Ghana until President Trump eventually scrapped the agency. Early this year, the U.S. Department of Agriculture also declared Ghana one of its priority countries just in 2025. Beyond that, we've also had other cooperation with the U.S. where we are getting assistance for defense, for security. Even this year, they have trained the National Intelligence Bureau, former BNI, on anti-terrorism. They have cooperated with our military on maritime issues. So the story has been painted as if everything has stopped. That is not the case. This is specifically limited to the Millennium Challenge Corporation. That is an important context to provide.
So it is specifically to the MCC, not every other form of financial agreement we have with the U.S.?
Not at all. I mean, right. For instance, DFC, the Development Finance Corporation, has an existing guarantee agreement with the AFSA Bank, for instance, under which they are providing loan guarantees. That is ongoing. That hasn't stopped. So as I think that the way the story has been painted gives a view as if everything has stopped. I mean, there's also even a news item just today where Foreign Minister Okujetu Ablakwa has met with the U.S. ambassador, where they are talking about deepening diplomatic and security cooperation. A lot goes on in the security and anti-terrorism space. But of course, it's not in the public domain. So there's a lot going on, and that is not going to stop.
So what then do you think, in your estimation, or having followed this issue, may have given people the impression that the decision by the U.S. goes beyond the Millennium Challenge Corporation?
I think it's how the media has reported it. So I blame the media. Where the media has done a bit of background, go to the U.S. Department of Agriculture's website. They have what they call the Food for Progress. In April 2025, they announced Ghana as one of their 5 priority countries. And typically, U.S. Food for Progress programs run 3 to 5 years. And if they made the announcements in April, by the time they go through the internal processes, procurement programs, these programs will take off next year. The last 3, 4, 5 years, and the minimum of 3 years, throughout to 2029. So I think the media has to do a bit of background work to understand the bigger context. The United States has a wide range of instruments through which it offers development cooperation. Of course, USAID and the Millennium Challenge Corporation were the biggest ones. Of course, USAID were affected in the general USAID terms. Like I said, we declared default in December 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. USAID was still running programs in Ghana, not because of our default, but they exited because President Trump had taken an executive decision to scrap most of USAID. Even then, part of USAID operations have been absorbed by the State Department. So you never know, there could be some small pockets of things going on there. But the bottom line is that the funding for development assistance generally has gone down across everything that the U.S. does. So that is the larger context in which we have to look at this issue.
Right. Kindly hold on for me. Let's also get the thoughts of a member of the Finance Committee in Parliament who is in the person of Atta Issa. He's a member of Parliament for Sagnarigu. Good evening, Honorable, and thank you for your time joining us also on 3FM.
Good evening to my brother on the other line and to yourself and to the good people of this country.
Right, I'm sure you've also followed the news that we're discussing, which has to do with reports that the U.S. is barring Ghana from accessing foreign assistance in terms of financing. And my resource person, whom you just heard, is saying that it is not as broad and widespread as some of the reports are saying, and that it was quite specific to the Millennium Challenge account. First of all, as a member of Parliament on the Finance Committee, has this come to your attention, and what are your general thoughts on it?
So I would say that this is a very disturbing news. However you look at it, Ghana belongs to a global community. And one thing that every country must take seriously is your debt obligation and your sovereignty. So for me, as early as September 2025, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, the U.S. main agency that channels large-scale development aid to Ghana, declared Ghana ineligible for U.S. foreign assistance for the fiscal year 2026. So this is not just today's issue. Now, what caused the disqualification? The inability stems from the default restrictions under Section 7012 of the U.S. FY 2025 State Foreign Operations and Related Program Appropriation Act, essentially because Ghana has unresolved external debt obligations and default status. And you quite remember, Ghana entered into the domestic debt exchange program and then external restructuring program, primarily because of difficulties in servicing our debt. So this law bars disbursement of ease development aid until restructuring is completed. So I think that it is not over yet, because currently the Ministry of Finance is left with only 7% for us to restructure our external debt. So in other words, the block or suspension in this case is official and Ghana cannot access the Millennium Corporation aid or any other likely forms of U.S. bilateral assistance, at least until the debt restructuring program or obligation are cleared or a waiver is granted by the parties.
That is the part I want you to help me clarify. Yes. You say the Millennium Challenge Corporation and any other financial engagements that we have. In the story that is gone viral, we are told that because of our default, which is estimated to the tune of about $251 million in outstanding payments to U.S. companies like Twin City Energy, etc., Zipline, Cosmos Energy. All of these are part of the reason. Is that the same understanding you have, or it is very specific to the fact that because of our default when it comes to how much we owed and our inability to pay, it's directly to just the Millennium Challenge account, and the other ones are not necessarily in line with what we are concerned about?
No, all is likely to be affected, because the idea is that any person that you advance support of finances to, the capacity or the ability to pay is very critical. So the announcement is not only about the MCP 8. It is also dependent on all bilateral relations that we have with the U.S. And I think that as a matter of urgency, the finance ministry has to reach out to the U.S. government for us to get a clearer and a successful way out. Now, moving on, look, this is very serious, and it has serious fiscal implications on the vulnerabilities of our economy. As you are aware, we are currently recovering from the post-COVID and the Russia-Ukraine war and other macroeconomic difficulties. So this is on the U.S. aid in the context of Ghana's broader debt crisis. So it carries significant risk and deepening existing vulnerabilities.
Okay.
So, for example, let me say loss of financing and support for many development projects. If you remember, at the beginning of this year, USA canceled the U.S. aid program. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
Which stalled a lot of projects in Ghana because they had earmarked funds for various projects at various stages of completion. As a result of that announcement alone, all those projects have been put on stall and monies have already been invested into them. That has put serious burden on our fiscals for us to complete those projects. It also, look, such issues erode investor confidence. Creditors, investors, and other partners may interpret the U.S. move as a signal of heightened risk, which could further increase risk premium and borrowing costs for Ghana, or reduce the appetite for new foreign direct investment.
Right.
Similar concerns have been raised by the U.S. diplomatic representatives earlier this year, if you remember,
yes,
over payment delays by state-aligned entities like Cocoa Board and others. Now, what it simply also means is that it will crowd out the domestic fiscal space with fewer external support from the U.S., which is a key development partner, and persistent large debt servicing obligations that is placed on the government of Ghana. We may need to rely more heavily on the domestic market through the short-term bond market, or we borrow from other sectors at higher interest rates.
Okay.
Meanwhile,
please hold on for me.
In the budget, we are projected to reduce the debt to GDP ratio from the current 45% as at October to even about 39%. So if you have difficulties with fiscal issues like this, it means that it will throw your debt projections, it will put inflationary pressures on the economy and currency volatilities.
Okay.
And finally, before you come in, what is its impact on social and development priorities? Projects, especially vulnerable sectors like health. If you look at the MCP 8, we do projects in the health, sanitation, education, rural development, agriculture. These all projects may stall and scale back or even be cancelled, harming the well-being and undermining the long-term development goals. So more broadly, I would say this adds to a diplomatic and geopolitical dimensions to Ghana economic woes. So with diminished support from the traditional partner like U.S., like I indicated earlier, Ghana may feel pressure to rely on alternative creditors or partners.
Okay.
But this comes at its own challenges and costs.
Certainly. So
in short,
I would want to
the
come
U.S.
to you.
decision exacerbates our difficulties. But Ghana, I think that can come out strongly through diplomatic relationship and discussions.
Yes.
And I will use this opportunity to call on the Ministry of Finance and the Foreign Affairs Ministry to, as a matter of urgency,
engage,
deal with this one in a diplomatic front, so that we don't suffer from the difficulties like other nations have suffered.
Kindly hold on for me. Hold on for me. I certainly am not done with you. I'll come to you so you can also walk us through what expectations from Parliament would be as a committee if this has come, not just to you as an individual, but as the committee, and what the next line of action would be. But let me go back to Nicholas Isaac Agbana, a development economist who is also with us. Mr. Agbana, did you understand what the Member of Parliament is saying, and how does that align with your earlier submission that it is not as widespread and broad as we are all concerned about, and that is just specifically to the Millennium Challenge account that we are beneficiaries of?
So I do. As I speak to you, I mean, there are online databases of U.S. development assistance grants. As I speak, there is a posting which was posted on the 16th of some support to the Ghana Health Service for laboratory equipment, 2 health-related projects. And these are things that are due to take off next year. One of them is under the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, EFA. It was posted on 16th October. The grant award is expected to happen in December. There's another one that is on public health systems by the Centers for Disease Control. That was posted in September. And these things are still online. They've not been dropped. So if they've not been dropped, I'm a bit struggling to understand why we say it covers everything. Because if it's been dropped, by now, they wouldn't still be on these online portals, which are available for the general public to check. So what happens in their system is that if they have something oncoming, they will post what they call a forecast, so that those who are interested know ahead of time. And these forecast projects, these are just 2 examples I've given, are due to be granted next year in 2026. So once again, let's do a bit more background. The U.S. development assistance terrain is very wide, very, very wide. And let's do a bit of background to get the nuances about these before we conclude that it affects everything. I don't get the impression it affects everything, no.
Right, but before I go to the Honorable Member of Parliament, what are your suggestions as regards how Ghana should navigate this particular issue? We know that the United States is heavily looking inward and is trying to put in different measures and strategies to ensure that aid that they give out that they think they are not benefiting from in any way, shape, or form as a country, they are going to suspend or cut it completely. And that is how come USAID, for instance, has been totally stopped by the current administration. Many other issues have come up, including immigration, etc., where you can tell that the Foreign Affairs Minister and the U.S. government, through various individuals, are trying to continually jaw in ensuring that Ghana still is a strong partner and still benefits if there are any benefits to that. What is the strategy when it comes to this particular issue that you would advise?
It's simple and straightforward. We need to conclude external debt restructuring. I mean, that was ongoing. I remember that, I mean, it's not as if by choice we don't want to conclude it. But these are matters of negotiation, and the critical issue borders on haircuts. So the Ministry of Finance goes and makes a proposal that a certain haircut should go off, and the other party will say no. So that is a contention. So once we're able to conclude that, it's not any major strategy issue. We just have to conclude that external debt restructuring with all our external creditors and sign off on it. That is all. And then they can resume. We have been caught up on this because of the specific eligibility requirements under MCC. And the only way to do it is to conclude external debt restructuring. So I just hope that the Ministry of Finance, that leads a process, can at least establish some kind of consensus with our external creditors and conclude on this, so that the door opens probably for 2027 for MCC to re-engage. MCC, Cote d'Ivoire, for instance, got assistance at MCC this year, for next year. So yeah.
Okay.
Right. So that for me is just the way forward. It's simple and straightforward. Conclude external debt restructuring with external creditors. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and your thoughts on this very particular issue. Nicholas Isaac Agbana, and we are grateful that you made time to speak to us. And he is a development economist. Still on the line with us is the Member of Parliament for the Sagnarigu constituency, Ataisa. Honorable, so now let's look at what Parliament Finance Committee can do regarding this concern. You've painted a picture of how serious this situation is and how Ghana could be adversely affected if no concrete immediate steps are taken. What could some of these steps be? And is the Committee of Parliament on Finance, aware of this?
Yes. This has been brought to the attention of Parliament Finance Committee, and I think as a matter of urgency, we will summon the finance minister to provide an update on the current development. However, as a member of parliament and somebody also in the finance industry, I will recommend the following possible way forward for Ghana in order to deal with some of these impacts on our finances. Like Prof said, first of all, we need to complete the debt restructuring and reach an agreement with all our external creditors, bilateral, bondholders, private creditors. Once only the debt obligations are seen as being under credible, agreed plan can bring the U.S. legal block lifted. That is the section 7012. The second thing, there's a saying that for every development, there's an opportunity. I think there is an opportunity for Ghana to expand alternative sources of funding, including developing new trade routes, multilateral institutions, regional partners in Africa, bilateral creditors. As already seen with Germany recently with President Mahama, we need to also go more for concessional financing and domestic resource mobilization to fill the gap lost by the U.S. aid and other facilities that we suffered under Donald Trump. We also need to strengthen the Public Financial Management Act and build fiscal buffers. That is, we need to maintain strict budget discipline, avoid accumulation of new arrears, because what led us to this is the decision in 2022 that we can no longer pay our external debt. So we need to stop the accumulation of new debt and then ensure transparent repayment, which I am proudly to announce that the Minister of Finance has reintroduced the concept of sinking funds in order to rebuild the trust with investors and partners. We also need to prioritize investment in economic resilience and diversification. Look, U.S. cannot only be our major trading partner. Right now, South Africa, India, China, and the Russian market is available. And I think that as a country, we need to diversify our source of funding and investment portfolio. And finally, let me say this, to round up my submission, it is also important to reinforce our social safety nets and critical services that was being sponsored by the MCC. Given the disruptions from the aid cuts, government should protect the essential services in the health, education, basic infrastructure to safeguard the vulnerable. Because whatever the situation is, it is the responsibility of government by Chapter 17 of our Constitution to provide aid for the vulnerable group. So all those support that was intended to come from the US aid and the MCCA, we need to protect and make sure that we find money to deal with that. And finally, we also need to rebuild our international credibility and investor confidence. Like I indicated earlier, this simply means that people will have doubt in us, that once we take money, we cannot pay. So through transparency policy making, clear communication on debt services, we must come public on it, avoiding new arbitrary borrowing and demonstrating commitment to reforms to attract new investments and possibly regain access to the concessional financing. That is what I will have to say.
Thank you that you brought this to our attention in terms of what Parliament intends to do, the Committee on Finance, and your honourable thoughts on and ideas you've proposed on dealing with this very important subject. The Honourable Member of Parliament for Sangnarigu, Ataisa, it's a pleasure talking to you. And so clearly, it's I mean, the backstory we have all now been made aware of, that as far back as 2022 December, when Ghana publicly said that we were going to be defaulting on our loans or monies that we have taken from other countries and international corporations and even individuals as a country, we are not going to be able to pay them as we had agreed. So we are going to be defaulting on this. That is the backstory of why the U.S. government, based on what we have just heard, is reviewing countries that would be assessing funds from them. And Ghana is one of the countries that will be affected because of the lack of continuous payment of upholding our obligations when it comes to financial repayments. And on the back of that, the decision by the U.S. government is likely to have adverse impact on our economy, because a very significant percentage of every money that comes into the country is from the U.S. government and other institutions that work within the U.S. that have branches here, or investors that have come to put their resources into the country. So we need to find a way about this particular issue. So like you had the Member of Parliament say, the Finance Minister and the Foreign Affairs Minister may have to get to work immediately if we are to stop this bleeding that is likely to affect us from 2026. You're listening to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. It might sound far-fetched or far away from you, but definitely it would have an impact on you, because I'm sure you know one or two people, or probably a project that has halted, or people that have become unemployed because the U.S. government has decided to cut U.S. aid, or USAID as you know it. And that is actually having an adverse effect on a number of people and also on part of the economy when it comes to development. So do let us know what your thoughts are. We are streaming on Facebook and on YouTube. Do send us your thoughts and messages. We'll be happy to reshare that with the rest of the world. On to some other stories we have for you this evening. The Ghana Medical Association has rejected accusations that doctors are refusing postings simply because they do not want to serve in rural communities. This follows revelations that 7 out of every 10 medical officer recently posted across the country failed to report to their assigned stations. That's 305 out of the 463 newly deployed doctors. The northern regions, the northern, upper east, and upper west, recorded 0 arrivals. This is happening at a time when more than 80% of Ghana's doctors are concentrated in the Ashanti and Greater Accra regions. To get a better understanding of the situation, let's walk you through some of the numbers that we do have. And before that, let's also bring you the voice of what the health minister has been saying. That is Kwabena Minta Kando on Tuesday. He addressed journalists on a number of health issues in the country and touched also on this particular issue. Let's bring you what the minister has been saying. Then we can walk through the key issues that may have risen, or maybe the reason why a number of doctors are failing to go to the rural areas for postings.
First, let me start off by correcting that impression that the doctors have refused posting. The fact that the person has not reported does not mean that the person has refused posting. So I think that needs to be corrected.
So that's not the health minister. We'll bring you the health minister's audio in a jiffy. That is actually the Ghana Medical Association refuting the allegations that they have refused to post, or they have refused to go to their various places of posting. Dr. Titus Bayu is member of parliament. He's a member on the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health. He, unfortunately, we seem to have lost him on the line. Right, you're still listening to 3FM 92.7. Let's go to some other stories now. And the Minister of Health, like I indicated, has been speaking on this issue. Let's listen to him now.
Posting of new medical officers across the country as at Friday, that is last Friday, is not encouraging. We will give them additional 1 week to appeal to them to report to their various facilities where they have been posted, after which we will do what we call validation, whilst we are also engaging the stakeholders in their respective districts, regional ministers, members of parliament, DCEs, chiefs, to facilitate their stay in their district to be able to give up their best. We have started that myself, engaging them. And so government will also look at how we can incentivize them to give up their best in these districts where they have been posted. We have nearly 50% of all medical doctors we have in this country in Greater Accra alone. Nearly 50%. It's not scary. So at this point, government has taken a decision. Now look, let's...
And so you heard the voice of Kwabena Minta Akanda, who is the minister in charge of health in Ghana, more or less appealing to the doctors who've been posted who have refused to go to their various positions or posts to reconsider their decision and go there because their services are needed badly. And on the back of what the minister said, which is because there were reports that a number of those who have been posted to rural areas decided not to attend. There have been reactions to this. The Ghana Medical Association, however, is insisting that the conditions on the ground make it difficult for doctors to accept the postings. They argue that until a conducive and safe working environment is guaranteed, their members cannot be compelled to take up such assignments. Dr. Titus Bayo is a member of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health and has joined us on the phone for a quick reaction to this. Doc, good evening to you. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, and good evening to your listeners.
Has this come to your attention? This certainly wouldn't be the first time that we have heard reports of medical doctors refusing postings, especially to rural Ghana.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me, Doc?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yes, I'm asking that this certainly isn't the first time that this kind of report has become public, that doctors or medical professionals are refusing postings to rural areas. How serious is this, since you certainly are aware of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's serious. And as you mentioned, this is not the first time. In fact, the Medical Association itself had concern at some point to devote its annual general conference to this phenomenon. Where, hello?
Yes, I can hear you, Doc.
Yeah, where doctors refuse postings to the rural areas and underserved areas. And at the time, we realized that you could see that almost about 50% of the doctors in Ghana are in only two regions. That's the Greater Accra and the Ashanti regions only. So it's a phenomenon that has been with us, unfortunately, for some time. And it's disturbing to both the practitioners, to the policymaker, and to the patient.
Yes, Doc. Yeah. And so, having known this for some time, I'm sure that one of the key campaign strategies of this current administration was to ensure that you gave some incentives to people who will be posted. In fact, I heard and I read that was part of your strategy so that they can willingly and understand why their services are needed elsewhere. Has that worked? Is it working?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the package you talked about is not lost on government. I think we've all known that it is necessary to find a means of attracting critical health workers to the rural areas. And I was on a committee. I represented the GMA in that worked on this package, a comprehensive package. But unfortunately, we couldn't really complete. And the Medical Association has been engaging, and I know government is also engaging on it. NPC put it in our manifesto that we're going to provide some incentives like a differential pay in their base pay to attract doctors to and other critical healthcare workers to underserved areas. But these are all in development. So it's unfortunate we find ourselves here, but we will appeal to the doctors to go. While we appeal, like the minister is trying to do, the minister is asking the local government, regional ministers, MMDCs, chiefs to help make sure that they can achieve environment like providing accommodation and other things that would help these doctors settle into their first major job.
Dr. Bayo, thank you so much for speaking to us this evening.
Most welcome.
Dr. Titus Bayo is a member of Parliament on the Health Committee of the House and clearly has said that government is aware of this concern, which actually buttresses the report or the position of the health minister. However, we are also told by the Ghana Medical Association that it is not entirely true that they just don't want to go to these rural areas or outskirts of the country. It is also as a result of the working conditions there. So let's listen to the General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, who has been explaining or insisting that the conditions on the ground make it difficult for doctors to accept these postings.
First, let me start off by correcting that impression that the doctors have refused posting. The fact that the person has not reported does not mean that the person has refused posting. So I think that needs to be corrected. Again, the data that you are relying on talks about 400, a little less than 400 being posted. That is from the Ghana Health Service alone. There are other agencies under the Ministry of Health, especially CHAG, where we are informed many have reported to post and are accepting postings. So let's go back a bit. These doctors were sitting at home yearning for work for over 1.5 years, some of them, and some 1 year. Kemini, if you were one of these doctors, I am sure you will not sit at home and fold your hands into your lap. You have to eat, you have to feed. Some have families to take care of. Some were nurses who stopped becoming nurses and gone to medical school to become doctors, and they had family to feed. So some of them had to look for work to be doing in the private sector. Some too have had to go back to school. Some have gone out of the country to attend to other work. When the opportunity then came, with GMA working hard with the ministry and the Ministry of Finance, and then this portal got open for them to apply, we have continuously worked with the ministry on this matter. And then the doctors have been now posted. Remember, this posting just happened just barely, I think 2 weeks or so ago, with the doctors now being called to report to these facilities. Like I said, some have committed themselves to certain engagements to feed, to be able to live, and they have to disengage. Some too have now been called. It's also important to note that some have also reported and have been told there's no accommodation. We also know that there's a difference in how the agencies recruit. The one you are referring to refers to only Ghana Health Service.
Yeah.
CHAG posts you specifically to a facility, whereas Ghana Health Service sends you to a region, allocates you to a region, and then the region decides which facility you go.
Right.
Typically, the region will now brief you on conditions on the ground, which one suits whatever your strengths are, and then post you to those particular facilities.
I see.
Some of the regions actually just began engaging the medical officers this week. So, for example, if you were posted to, for example, Boku, where there are serious security concerns, and I know at least 2 doctors who have been posted to Boku, you will need some assurances of how safe you are to be able to provide the care. If you have been also told, for example, that there's no accommodation available, you will need some assurances of where you are going to stay so that you can respond to emergencies at the middle of the night, etc.
So that is Dr. Richard Salome, General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, also stating his position on the reports, or at least partially agreeing with the fact that some doctors don't go for varied reasons. However, they think that it is not everybody who has refused to go. A number of them have actually responded to this national call and responded and gone to their various areas where they've been posted to. But if you're watching us on Facebook and on YouTube, in a jiffy, we'll put on the screens for you to see what the actual numbers are when it comes to how many doctors have been posted, which specific regions they've been posted to, and what the turnout rate has been like. So as we speak, I'm sure you're following, especially those on Facebook and YouTube and on X. You can tell that 463 is the number of doctors that have been posted this year. 463. And out of that number, 305 are yet to report. So that is almost 80% of those. Out of the 463, 305 of them are yet to report to their various postings, and that's quite significant. And some of the reasons that they have adduced to why they have refused to report to their various areas of postings include, amongst other things, weak internet and telecommunications services, limited access to clean drinking water, of course, because it's a rural area, sometimes they have clear challenges with potable water, and then also limited education and childcare options. So when they are there, issues of public education and what kind of education they themselves can be getting are very, very limited. There is less social life and networking because some of those areas are not developed at all. So when they go, they either go to work, close, come home. There is no social life, nothing else to engage them. And then another crucial point is poor road network. So by the time some of them get to their areas of postings, it takes about 2 to 3 days. And by the time they get there, they are covered in dust. So it is quite a concerning issue about how these doctors, the medical professionals, are saying that they want to do the work for Mother Ghana. However, the concerns they are also having is quite palpable. And like we indicated, the 3 regions in the north, the northeast, the upper east, and then the upper west regions have not received their doctors, or their doctors who've been posted, they have not turned up at all. And that is quite concerning. But if you look at areas like the Greater Accra region and the Ashanti region, we have majority of the doctors already at post. And so it tells you why this call from the minister is quite significant, asking that any doctor or medical professional who's been posted to the rural area needs to go and work for Mother Ghana and provide their services to those who are in need. So do let us also know your thoughts on this particular issue. Are you a doctor, a medical doctor yourself, or a medical professional, or you know someone who is? What do you make of this decision? The current administration during the campaign captured in their manifesto that they are going to incentivize doctors or professionals who agree postings out of the major cities. If you're going to any other part of the country but the key cities, you are likely to get some extra incentive. And that is a promise they've made. Have they fulfilled it? Have you seen anything else beyond what has been the status quo? And have you agreed to go to your place of posting? Do send us a message or a thought on this, and we'll be happy to share that with the rest of the world. In a jiffy, we'll be going to find out what's happening in the world of business, but let's bring you some other issues having to do with our natural resources as a country. The Minister for Lands and Natural Resources has announced that the government is preparing a new legal instrument that will establish a comprehensive long-term framework for mineral royalties in Ghana. Speaking at a press conference in Accra, Emmanuel Kofi-Boah, the Minister in charge of Lands and Natural Resources, said that the new guideline developed in collaboration with the Office of the Attorney General will cover all mineral resources, including lithium.
Currently, the applicable royalty rate for mining operation, including lithium, as you know, he said, as you know, set or stated by law, and what is in the books right now. And let me talk about the history of this amendment that has happened. There was an initial royalty rate of 3 to 6%. It was amended and was stated that royalty will be at 5%. And then there was another amendment that says that it will be by an act as applicable by law. What was missing was that the instrument that should guide that applicable by law was never in place. And so, technically speaking, what you could refer to was the original one, which says that 5%. I'm very happy to inform you that we've worked closely with the Attorney General. We'll be coming to, once we finish your cabinet, we'll be coming to Parliament with a new instrument that will permanently lay a complete, comprehensive guideline on royalties, not only in the lithium sector, but in all minerals.
And you heard Kofi-Boah, who is the Minister in charge of natural resources, lands and natural resources in Ghana. Clearly, it tells you how serious government is regarding the lithium deal. So let's now bring you one other headline that we've been monitoring for you, having to do with your utilities, because now everybody is having to dip deeper into their pockets to pay more for electricity and water, because the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, the PURC, has defended the recent tariff adjustments, asserting that they were not implemented at the expense of consumers. Effective January 1, 2026, electricity tariffs will rise by 9.86% across all customer categories, while water tariff will go up to 15.92%, and this increase will be for the next 5-year period. There is more in this report put together for you. Unfortunately, we seem to be having a challenge with this audio.
This will be the fourth time the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, PURC, has announced a tariff review this year, though it will take effect in 2026. The Commission argues that the adjustments are necessary to meet the investment requirement of utility providers, ensure industry competitiveness, and safeguard consumer interests.
So if the Commission in its wisdom is able to scale it down from 225% to 9.68%, considering the investments that have to be made for the sector to be afloat, I don't think that the Commission has not taken into consideration the concerns of consumers. Mind you, the Commission went around the whole country, engaging consumers, stakeholders. It held public hearings in all 10 regional capitals. So it cannot just be the case that the Commission has gone to all those places and will not take the concerns of consumers on board. So the consumers' concerns have been equally factored into the tariff. That's how come we have a reduced tariff.
But consumers say the adjustment bands are high.
If government will increase it and make it available for everybody, why not? They will increase, then the water is not flowing. That is not good. Light, if they will increase it and we won't sit in darkness, why not?
Some people do not pay the light and water bills, so when increased, we will all pay to help the government pay workers. When prices of goods are low, the increments will not really affect our business.
When it comes to electricity and water, it is an essential thing that everybody enjoys. And I think when it's going up, generally it affects everybody. It affects goods and services, whatever, because people who are also producing goods and services use electricity. Who use electricity may want to add the cost to the prices of their goods, and it will bring about inflation.
The increments will affect our business, but what we want government to do is to reconsider the increment.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck Ausa. Coming up tonight, Ghana's inflation falls for the 11th straight month, dropping to 6.3% in November as both food and non-food prices ease across the country. Thanks for your company. Now to the details. Ghana's inflation has fallen for the 11th consecutive month, reaching 6.3% in November 2025, down from 8% in October, marking one of the most sustained periods of disinflation in recent years. The latest Consumer Price Index report from the Ghana Statistical Service shows broad declines across food, non-food and services inflation, with overall prices rising by just 0.9% between October and November. Dr. Alhassan Idrisu is government statistician.
November 2025, Ghana recorded a year-on-year inflation rate of 6.3%. This marks the 11th consecutive month of decline in inflation and the lowest inflation rate since we did the rebasing in 2021. To put this in perspective, inflation was 23.8% in December 2024. So in less than a year, inflation has dropped by 17.5 percentage points. Month-on-month, inflation for November was 0.9%. This indicates that although prices increased between October and November, the increase was quite moderate and consistent with the broader slowdown in inflation that we have observed throughout the year.
And that was government statistician Dr. Alhassan Idrisu. Before we go, the Abosokan Spare Parts Dealers Association has strongly denied claims by Minority Leader Alexander Afenyomarkin that its members are disappointed in President John Dramani Mahama for not abolishing import duties on spare parts in the 2026 budget. In a statement, the association described Afenyomarkin's comments as inaccurate and misleading. While acknowledging that the import duties remain, the association highlighted that recent government interventions have provided meaningful relief. These measures include the appreciation of the cedi, removal of COVID-19 taxes, abolition of the decoupled NHIL and GET fund levies, and an increase in the VAT threshold to 750,000 cedis. The dealers stated these developments are warmly welcomed and urged the public to disregard any attempt to misrepresent its position or create tension with the government. And that brings us to the end of the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck Ausa. Bilishan is here for sports. Please stay.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the sports segment here on the 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Bill Ishen. Let's start off from the local scene where Division 2 side True Life FC pulled off a remarkable upset in the Ghana FA Cup round of 64, knocking out Ghana Premier League giant Heartofok with a 1-0 victory at the Pobiman Training Centre. A composed second half strike from Ahing, beautifully set up by Robert Nate after a slick one-touch move, proved decisive and sent the visiting side into the round of 32. And so True Life have knocked out Heartofok in the MTN FA Cup. Now let's go to some other stories where the Premier League action continues today. Burnley face Crystal Palace in Lancashire. Wolves will host Nottingham Forest at Molineux. Leeds United take on Chelsea in Yorkshire. And Liverpool welcome Sunderland to Anfield, and Arsenal will knock horns with Brentford at the Emirates Stadium. Now, Mikel Arteta, the head coach of the Gunners, says his team must find better ways to create chances against a well-organized Brentford side.
That's it. Be prepared for what is coming, and then focus on ourselves. Yeah, well, what we've done in the last 4 or 5 years, and obviously the turnaround has been big, and we believe it was very necessary to create the spine. We could not do it in one window or 2 windows. We needed time to do it, and we brought players especially that they can complement each other really well, which is great, and they are performing at the highest level. So we continue to now, while we have them, keep evolving them.
Meanwhile, Liverpool manager Arne Slot has commended Sunderland's recruitment in the top flight and highlighted some of their standout performances, particularly against several of the league's top teams.
Yeah, a big compliment for the manager because they brought in a lot of new players and they started off so well. I saw the game Chelsea against Arsenal on our way back home. Very high standard game, 2 teams that were fighting each other, working so hard, all the players on the pitch. And then I was aware of the fact that Sunderland was the team that beat Chelsea in their stadium and had a draw against Arsenal. So you can look at the league table by looking at them, how good they have done till now. But after that game, knowing that Sunderland is a team that beat Chelsea and had a draw against Arsenal, tells you how strong they must be.
That was Arne Slot, the head coach of Liverpool. Now, some updates from the 2026 World Cup draw. Excitement is rising across North America as qualified nations prepare to land their group stage opponents. For many African fans and two former national team icons in particular, the hope is clear: a rematch with the Black Stars. London Donovan, one of the most iconic figures in U.S. football history, has voiced his desire to see Ghana drawn in the same group as the tournament's co-hosts.
Oprah, when you reach in there and it's the hot one, it's going to be Ghana. It's going to be Ghana. So, and this isn't a great Ghana team.
Give me Ghana.
Give me Ghana.
Give me Ghana.
This isn't a great Ghana team, but it's still Ghana. And we have plenty of history when it comes to playing against Ghana.
I want to play them. I want Ghana because I want to get over that hurdle.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
I want some for my personal sake.
That was London Donovan stating that US, they want Ghana in their group for the 2026 World Cup. Bringing an end to sports here on the 3FM Hot Edition, and another episode of the 3FM Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7. We'll see you same time on Thursday with some more updates. Until then, have a great evening.